You recently saw Godzilla, right?
Yeah, I think two of us actually seen Godzilla.
I saw Godzilla.
Well, that means that I didn't.
Yes.
Yes, so, and we have actually a difference of opinion because we've talked about this.
Oh, you liked it?
I really loved it. I mean, I had a great time, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You already said he has no taste, huh?
Yeah.
I didn't say that.
Oh, I'm saying.
I think you said that.
I saw your post.
Oh, well, I'd say, no, review it, you know.
It's totally fine. Like, here on the show, we are considerate of other people having differing opinions. So, I really loved it, you know, as I don't want to be like the types like, oh, I'm a Godzilla fan, so I know better, but I did respect the fact that they went with the approach of the 1954 Godzilla, where it's like 22 minutes into that movie before you actually see Godzilla, and it's just like the top of his head. It's very much the same approach that they took in this movie, where we get little teases of him, where we don't actually see him until later in the movie, and it's even later in the movie when we find to get to see the throwdown that we've been waiting for. So I respect that approach of not giving us everything at once. Being a little restrained. There's some of the other arguments about some of the acting. I totally agree. The main actor, I forgot his name.
From Kick-Ass.
Kick-Ass kid. Wooden as hell. Like, they could have just used a mannequin and they would have gotten a better performance, I think. So he was a bit of a weak link. I thought Bryan Cranston's character, though, was interesting enough. Wish we had a little bit more screen time with him. But, I had no idea what I was going to... I guess this is spoilers part. I don't know, Dave, if you plan on seeing the movie.
I don't care.
Spoiler.
Bryan Cranston,
Godzilla.
Bryan Cranston dies within the first, I think, 30 or 40 minutes of the movie. So
I don't even know who Bryan Cranston is, so you're fine.
Breaking Bad, Walter White.
Well, now I know what he is.
Yeah. So, him dying early in the movie was a bit of a surprise to me. Some of the human elements were a little hit and miss. I wish we could have seen more of actually Ken Watanabe's character.
Right, yeah.
Wish we could have stuck with him a little bit longer. And sometimes the coincidences were like, it was borderline of like, okay, this is almost a little bit too much coincidence. The son grows up to be a soldier who's an EOD expert who just so happens to be in Tokyo.
Yeah.
It adds up, but it didn't detract from the movie overall. Like, I just had a good time, and when we got to see Godzilla, the 12-year-old in me was like super excited. I was like, oh, Godzilla, yes. And just that last, Godzilla ripping the Mutos, I think that's what they were called, ripping his head off and holding it in his hands was just like, oh, fuck yeah, we've never seen that in a Godzilla movie. And you get to see like Godzilla and all of his badassness. I guess badassery. But so I had a good time, and I also saw it in the RPX 3D, and I sat 3 rows back from the screen, so I was really close. And if you haven't been to like an RPX, it's basically like an IMAX light.
Right. Yeah.
So setting 3 rows back is really close to the screen. It's really huge. You're getting almost like a neck, like crick in your neck from looking up. But I did it because I wanted like that sense of like being a child where everything is just so huge.
Right.
And it worked for me. Like like I said, I enjoyed the movie, but I also am open to people's like reasons for not liking it. So.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I'll say is after talking with you, I had a lot of strong opinions about what I thought about it, and a lot of my adversity to the film, you brought up like, well, that is kind of how the first one was. And what I realized is that my perspective on Godzilla is really from sequels. It's really not. I don't know that I've watched the entire original Godzilla, because my memories of Godzilla is him fighting like Mothra and all this crazy shit, Mechagodzilla.
And those are great. I mean, I enjoyed all of those too.
But they are different. It's almost like by the time you get to Rocky IV, he's fighting a giant Russian, but the first one's an Academy Award winner, Yeah. So, but I don't know. It's not quite the same. But bottom line is, my initial reaction was I just thought they went a little too Christopher Nolan with it, trying to scientifically make sense of all this stuff, where I thought, oddly, like Pacific Rim was just like, hey, a rift opened up and monsters came out, let's fight them. You know, for me, it was a little more belabored with its scientific explanation. But I think you're saying, well, that's how the first one was, right? That's how the original was.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of science involved in the first one, too, where they show bombs being tested. They show, like, the scientists. It revolves around a scientist who is explaining why Godzilla exists. You know, it was a byproduct of the nuclear, atom bomb.
Right.
Because in 1945, I believe, or 44, the A bomb in Nagasaki, in Hiroshima. So you're looking at basically 10 years later, and them addressing that situation. So there's a lot of science in it, and this one I think was trying to go that same route. Like at bits, I was like, well, they should show a little bit more restraint with the science, but I didn't have too much of a problem. I didn't really, let it get too much in the way of.
How was the scream? The iconic.
It's sort of, I guess, like
Godzilla.
For me, a lot of the, I know they are trying to emulate, like you're saying, sort of the original Godzilla roar, but a lot of the sound design sound very familiar, sound very canned. It's sort of like this, like in every, like Transformers or Michael Bay, they're doing this like sort of low grade pulsing, brum, 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 like, these loud sort of low tugboat noises. Yeah. And it all kind of just started to sound the same to me. So where it's a tough spot, especially because it is sort of like a disaster movie, and it's hard for them to pull anything fresh out of it. For me, it wore on me a little bit. My biggest problems was the casting, is that you did lose the best actor in the film 20 minutes in. You did have this sort of Gomer Pyle, like you said, mannequin of a, not even mannequins being generous, it's just this like turd for a main character who was great in Kick-Ass. Aaron Taylor Johnson, obviously great at what he does, but just for this film I don't think he's working. The lead actress,
it's also unrecognizable too in this role. Like, I didn't even know that was him until I went home and I was checking. I was like, why is this guy is this like his first movie? But then you're like, oh wait, it's the Kick-Ass kid. He's like so beefed up now, and got a chiseled chin, and it's just, man, you got beefed up, but you forgot your acting chops.
Yep. And then Elizabeth Olsen, who played his wife, like, I mean, honestly, I didn't think she was very good either, but even if she was good, they gave her absolutely nothing to do. I mean, I know we differ on this a little bit. I feel like they pretty much made her the weeping wife. And it's got to be really fucking hard for women who, they hone their craft, they audition, they get a role, and then this is the fucking role they have to play. The fucking weeping wife waiting at home, taking care of the kids. And you got to be like, that has just got to be so fucking unsatisfying. I don't know. I mean, I think they need to do a better job writing women. I don't know what that role would be, but they should have done better,
Yeah, I think we talked about this one too. Like, I understand it, and she is a bit of basically a non-factor in a lot of ways, but because we had mentioned like so many coincidences with everything else, I think if they really would have pushed her into more of an active role, it would have been like, I think, just too much coincidence of like her saving something or doing something. It's just like, because you got the husband he's like in every scene almost and doing.
They just need to rewrite the whole thing and make her like a scientist, I feel like the female roles were horrible in this. And there's no real reason for it. You don't have to make this contrived thing where she's related to everyone, or whatever you have to do with the character, but just this is like one of the only female roles, and it's just fucking horrible.
She got the stock standard of nurse.
The
position of almost every, in an action movie, that's almost the role of.
Well,
it's disaster movie. There's always a nurse, and it's connected to the main characters.
When they want to make someone seem like noble and blue collar, they're usually like a nurse, or what's another role? Yeah, but I mean,
It's always a nurse.
it's always a nurse or a doctor or something. Yeah, yeah. So it's interesting. EMT maybe, I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, I mean,
but make her an EMT. That would at least be interesting. Whatever.
We gave her a lot more to do.
Yeah. So what would you get? How many sandwiches?
I'm not going to give it the full 5 or 4.5. I think I'm torn between 3.5 and 4. Like, I think I would have to see it again before I decided 4.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go 3.5 sandwiches. I could go 4 once I get a chance to watch it again. But yeah, 3.5 sandwiches. How about yourself?
Well, if I was going to rate it without talking to you, I would give it 2. But I guess I'm like 2.5, 3, somewhere around there. It does make a sense. It's funny, yeah, those who are really Godzilla loyalists will probably really like the way they took care of the franchise. So you got to give it credit for that, So I'd say 2.5, 3. But, I personally, as a film, as a standalone, and as someone who doesn't come from it knowing that much about Godzilla, except for the sort of cartoonier sequels, I just felt like there was a lot of lag in the middle of the film and some pretty unsatisfying relationships. I just kind of feel like if they were going to go for that drama, that character drama, they could have chosen a lot better performers. Like, I don't want to recast the thing, but I think they could have made better choices,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if there's obviously going to be a second one. So hopefully the Aaron Johnson will be left out of it, and I'm expecting that one will be a more of a, full bore. We don't have to worry about introducing Godzilla, and maybe they'll go even crazier with aliens or something else, something a little bit different for Godzilla to fight. But if I'm judging it against the last Godzilla movie that was made here in the United States, this movie's a 5 compared to that thing, the Matthew Broderick movie.
Right.
Which I think was another thing baggage that I took in with this movie was like, okay, this is going to be measured up against that shit turd.
Yeah. That fucking Jurassic Park ripoff, basically, with all the little raptors running around and shit. And
that was on TV the other night. I watched it for about 15 minutes, and I was like, this is terrible.
It's also hard, whoever the director of the 2014 Godzilla, they were in a really tight spot trying to come up with something fresh for that.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's like you might as well be redoing fucking Frankenstein or King Kong. Like, there's not a lot of room to do fresh things with it,
No, I mean, you look at how many other disaster monster movies there's been since the birth of King Kong. King Kong, I guess, would be considered the godfather of them, and then Godzilla, Cloverfield, even movies like that, Jurassic Park. So there's so much stuff that's already out there and to get a really truly fresh take takes some doing. And I wouldn't consider this a truly fresh take, but it is refreshing compared to some of the other trash that's out there.
Oh yeah,